You may not be trying to be a zillionaire, but if you want to make it in the gym business and really create impact on the communities you serve, you have to make enough income that you can live your life. So today, I want to show you some simple strategies that gym owners just like you are using to increase their income by as much as 40% or more in 90 days. Because let's be honest, it sucks if you're working super hard, working all of the hours, putting in all of the emotional labor and not really making any money. It just gets stressful week after week, month after month, if you're not able to make deposits into your bank account, if you're sweating paying your personal bills, you're not able to invest anything, so retirement's seeming scarier and scarier because you're not seeing your net worth go up month after month. Your spouse is starting to get frustrated with your hobby. And what started as marital support is suddenly turning into marital resentment. And not only that, but because you're not making enough money, you can't afford to hire help, and certainly not anybody that's competent, which means you have no freedom. It sucks. So while you don't want to be a zillionaire, you do want to be fairly compensated for the stress, the risks you're taking, and importantly, the value you're creating in the lives of the clients and communities you serve. But a lot of gym owners have a lot of head trash on this topic. The first mistake gym owners make is thinking, well, I don't really need to do this. I'll just keep trying to make more money and it'll come out in the wash. And I promise you that's not going to work. So if you're thinking that you can successfully increase your take-home income without making friends with the numbers, I'm here to assure you that's not the case. There's also two fears that, in my experience, get in the way for a lot of gym owners. Fear of math and fear of money. Now, these are related, but I want to call them out as distinct because I see fear of math showing up when gym owners have some limiting beliefs around money. And specifically, real talk, oftentimes this is because they got bad grades in math in middle school or high school, and it makes them feel like, well, I'm not good at math, I'm not a good math person. But this is fifth grade math. And by the way, there were a lot of things that you were poor at when you were in sixth grade that you are much better at now. I don't think you were a particularly competent driver as an 11-year-old. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm not a numbers person, I want to wipe that limiting belief. I'm going to go Jimmy Superfly Snook. I'm going to go, hey, limiting belief, la la, cacao.
He had it over.
And the second fear, which frankly is a little stickier, let's real talk, is fear of money. So no secret, a lot of people got a lot of weird messages about money from the media, from your family, from your friends. It feels shameful, confusing. A lot of people want money, but they're afraid of money. And I'll tell you this, as a final thought here, you will never find anybody that makes a good income that hates money. Now, I'm not saying you need to be obsessed with money and love money, because I do think that presents an issue too, and is also not the road we want to go down. But at the very least, you can't be afraid of it and you can't hate it. Now, if you want some help in some tactical things to do, I gotcha. You see, I know this is possible because we've done this with a ton of our members in the Unicorn Society over the years. In fact, let me tell you a story about one of our Unicorn Society members named Halen. So before Halen joined the Unicorn Society, he was spending a lot of time on education. By all accounts, he was a real legit trainer, and he was not afraid to put in work, and he was not afraid to learn. But he wasn't focused on the things that were really gonna move the business forward. And it's funny, he and I were having a chat of late, and he was reflecting on the moment we were on a phone call, and he was deciding he wanted to move forward and join the Unicorn Society. And he remembers distinctly being in his bedroom, and the most important thing about this moment in his life is his wife was pregnant. And I can tell you, I got a little child. I'm sure a lot of you listening either have kids or maybe plan to have kids. Things get real when kids are in the equation. So to Halen's credit, he signed the Unicorn Society and he went all in. And one of the things that is really amazing about Halen is he's a super numbers guy now. And there are two things about that Halen has mentioned as being particularly impactful about his commitment to getting into the numbers. The first was part of the thing that was getting his way was he was afraid to look at the actual numbers of the business because he just kind of didn't want to know. So if any of you are in that situation, I want to say that's perfectly normal. And I want you to take heart because not always, but sometimes, like in Halen's case, you look at the numbers and they're actually not as bad as you think. And even if they are, as Dan Sullivan says, all progress starts with telling the truth. You got to know those numbers. The other benefit of really getting serious about tracking numbers, particularly the way that Halen does, who again, I got to admit, pretty high level guy here, is he was able to be pretty rigorous about testing various marketing strategies. Because here's the other thing that's missing is if you're not tracking results from the things you're doing to try to grow your business, you don't know what's working and what's not. And something I got to tell you, I think this is one of the dark secrets of gym business coaching land is most strategies are not going to be equally effective in different markets. So you really have to test stuff. Remember, marketing is another word for test. And one other thing to know about Halen here is he didn't just feel better about his business, but his overall revenue is up $130K per year. But get this, his bottom line profit is up $109,000. So yeah, do the math. Basically all of the extra revenue is going right to the bottom line. So this admittedly is one of those like asterisk like results. The results don't always apply, right? Halen is a killer, but I hope it gives you some insight as to what's possible if, like Halen, you are willing to make friends with your numbers. And by the way, that's not the only time we've done this. Some recent examples include Brad, who increased his take-home income by over 100% since working with the Unicorn Society. We have Diane, who increased her gym's revenue by over 200% and kept a full 4/5 or 167%, math people, in increased take-home income. Another great example is Tom, who increased top-line revenue by 25%, but improved his net operating income by 85%. So once again, I hope you're seeing these are all examples of people that certainly they increased their revenue, but they managed their expenses better, which meant that a lot of that revenue was going to their bottom line profit, which massively increases their margin. Now, I'm gonna show you some specific ways to increase your income. And by the way, not necessarily through growing your business, though I think that's a good idea too. But first, let me ask you a question. Would you rather run a $1 million gym and be making $40,000 in total owner compensation, or would you rather run a $300,000 gym and make $100,000 in total owner compensation? My bet is, for most of you, the latter is the answer. And I bring that up because if we're managing our expenses properly, we don't necessarily need to see massive revenue growth. Listen, in most situations, it's not gonna be a bad thing, but there's all too many gym owners out there that will tell you, sometimes you drive your revenue higher and your income stays the same, or in some cases, even goes down, and now you just have more stress and a bigger overhead, and that is not what we're looking for here. So let's talk about some things that are going to be helpful. So I'll say if you want to go deeper on this topic and you really want to understand things like how much should a gym owner be making? What is a good income for a gym owner? If you really want to understand what percentage of your revenue you should pay out on things like rent or on staff, if you want some benchmarks to really check your numbers against, go ahead, click the link in that description box and download that free training. I think you're going to find it super valuable. We've gotten awesome feedback on it, and it will give you some real clarity on what numbers you should be shooting for. So as we think about how we are going to increase your income by 40% or more in 90 days, there are really three big buckets, right? Now, the first one, we're not gonna go into great detail, but as I mentioned before, like, yeah, all things being equal, if you get more clients, that's not bad, right? So I've covered this a ton on this YouTube channel. I have a lot of awesome trainings on it. In fact, I did one recently I'll direct you to, how to add 10 new gym members in 4 weeks without paid advertising. So if you don't wanna go down the route of paid ads, you're not really sure where to start with marketing, well, that's a great one to go check out. That's all I'm gonna say about that today, because I think there's actually two other things that will lead to even more immediate results that I just want to make sure are on your radar. So the second thing to consider is, are you charging what you're worth? Now, exactly how much you should charge depends on your service, depends on your market, but it is very rare we work with a gym owner and don't find them to be massively underpriced for the value they're creating and also for the service they're offering in a given market. A lot of gym owners are afraid to charge their worth. It's perfectly normal, but this is a big issue. So let's keep the math simple and understand the impact on your income if you're massively undercharging. Let's say hypothetically, you are making $20,000 per month and your total owner compensation is $5,000 per month. Well, let's say you're undercharging by, in practice, usually 30 to 50%, but let's say you're only undercharging by 10%. Most you can get away with increasing your rates by up to 10% without it being that massive of a hit from your clients. So let's say hypothetically, we go from $20,000 to $22,000 in revenue, but all of your expenses stay the same. There's your 40%, because now in theory, you could go from $5,000 to $7,000. Now, yes, I know in the real world, sometimes there are some people that are going to terminate their membership agreement. But in practice, we see you usually at the very least don't lose money in this situation. And if we're really nailing the first part of our equation, which is growing through marketing and sales, everyone coming in is going to be more valuable because now you're actually charging what you're worth. So if you want a great resource for that, also pro tip, you can find our Raise Your Rates playbook in the description box below, which will give you templates and show you exactly what to do if this is something that feels nervous. There's copy paste little emails. I address a little bit of the mindset things that get in our way and a bunch of other important considerations to do this right without really having tons of blowback and making your clients super mad. Now, the third piece of this, which I think is the least sexy, but I think super important, is managing your expenses. This is where we really start to run into issues if we're not looking at our profit and loss statement like a hawk every single month, really understanding how money is leaving the business. So one pro tip that I love here is every single month, review your P&L and try to cut off 1% of your expenses. Because for many gyms, you die by 1,000 cuts of these $10, $20, $40 monthly subscriptions you sign up for, and you're either not using it at all or aren't really getting the value for, and they just accumulate like barnacles. So that is one pro tip that is going to immediately make your life better, because understand, again, depending where your margins are at, every time you cut off 1%, well, in theory, that goes right to bottom line profit. Another number that we like to look at is for a financially healthy gym, in most situations, if we exclude owner pay, right? So owner pay, profit, taxes, distributions, we're keeping all that separate. We don't want more than 70 cents on the dollar to go to pay all the other expenses between people, rent, et cetera, et cetera. So again, a full deep dive into all the different ratios we look for is beyond the scope of this video, but go ahead, click the link in the description box below and watch my free training, How Much a Gym Owner Should Make, if you want to know more. My final pro tip for helping you control your expenses is making sure you are not overscheduled. So listen, if you have 30 sessions per week, but your capacity is at 40%, well, you probably don't need 30 sessions. Maybe you need 25 or maybe even 20. Now, if you're a one human band, the good news is this is going to just save you a lot of time, which matters because time has economic value, not just to you, but also to your loved ones that probably want to see you more. But I admit it's a little stickier because if you have a staff that you are paying hourly, this might mean a reduction of payroll. So even though that might make your ratios look better, I don't want to make this sound like, oh, just that easy, just, cut their pay in half, who cares? Like, I get it. There are some considerations that need to be made that you'll have to consider when you make these changes. So as a crude rule of thumb, if you are offering small group personal training, which we define as 6 people or less per session, we don't want to be below 70% utilization, or it means we have too much capacity we're offering. For classes, it's a little harder to say because it depends on how many people are in there, because as a rule, the more capacity you have, the lower utilization you can get away with, provided it still feels like a fun party. But in a vacuum, I'm gonna be looking out if I'm 65% or less, I'm gonna say something's going on there and we might need to be pulled back on some classes. So I hope it's clear that certainly one way to increase your income is driving more revenue. Again, by all means, we can and should do that. But for a lot of you, the real opportunity is making sure you're charging what you're worth and really starting to become friends with your numbers to make sure that we're not spending money on things that we don't need to, that we're controlling our costs, and we're not spending exorbitant, unreasonable amounts of money on things like staff or rent or any of the other things that we need to pay for when we're running a gym. So as a reminder, if you want to go in a lot deeper detail on this whole topic, go ahead, click the link below and check out How Much Should a Gym Owner Make. It's a free training and I think you're gonna like it. If you are working your butt off to make the world better through fitness, it is awesome to have the opportunity to share your passion in a way that can be impactful and improve the lives of other people. And you will only be able to do it sustainably if the gym actually works for you and it provides you the appropriate livelihood for your efforts. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, I always like to give you just one thing, just do this thing first. If this is all too much and you're just not sure where to begin, at the very least, look at your profit and loss broken down. I want to look at, most of you are presumably hopefully using something like Xero or QuickBooks. You can get this from your bookkeeper account if this is all new and daunting for you. I promise they're already doing it. And you really want to look line by line at those expense items and just see, is there anything in there I can cut? Because remember, immediately anything that you remove as an expense becomes bottom line profit for you. All right, pals, thank you so much as always for watching these videos. If you want to find out more about how Business with Unicorns help gym owners just like you create more income, more impact, and more freedom, you can find a link below for our coaching group, the Unicorn Society, where you can find out all about what we offer and next steps. And you can also find links to a ton of other free resources in the description box below. Thank you as always, friends, for watching these videos. I will look forward to seeing you next time, where I will share with you more actionable tips, psychological frameworks, and philosophy.